Welcome back to How I Survived a Narcissist. If you looked at part one, I left off where I talked about kind of how this narcissist or my ex really started to try to drive a wedge between my kids. And it started to get really dark in this relationship. And I really felt like the amount of gaslighting started to escalate. And so I really want to take you into kind of the mind of where I was at the time. And at the time, I had recently been laid off. I had moved across the country and I ended up being in another state that I'd never lived in before. And so, being unemployed in a new state, I spent a lot of time running the streets, to be honest with you, doing a lot of going out, drinking, and just trying to find friends at this point. I was kind of lonely. And so when I met this individual, quickly it turned into a relationship. He kind of appeared as an angel of light at first, really wanting to, be kind and nice to me and my kids. But very quickly it turned kind of dark. And that's what I really left off last time because it got really crazy. And not only did he really start to drive a wedge between my kids, but he also started to isolate me from my family. And this isolation just really started with kind of pulling me away from, where I lived and not really allowing me to be by myself. I mean, he wanted to be with me 24/7. And I felt smothered actually. And I was pretty independent before that. I was single, I was a career woman, and I wasn't used to this level of attention. So at first, it kind of captured me because it was new. And then quickly, after dating for a little while, it started to really smother me. And I felt like he was trying to consume me from the inside out. And so it just meant that he isolated me even from my kids. And so I really spent this time, starting to resent it, but I really didn't have an option. And so I felt like I stayed in this relationship way longer than I should. But I started to feel kind of this pit in my stomach. And there's a couple things that are interesting about a narcissist, because in this case, this was an evil narcissist, and the kind that I wish I knew what I know now about the level of evil some people are, because honestly, this was a twisted individual. And what he would do would make me feel paranoid. And part of this isolation would be to talk to me about all the weird things. And I, have over my life, I've been attracted to bad boys. So he was more kind of a bad boy, a little twisted, not probably the type that I would be with in my 30s, but here I was, new to this area and really just going with the flow. And so that was the first mistake. Drinking, going with the flow, and bypassing every red flag that was in my gut. And he would tell me these weird stories about these visions he would have. And then he started to try to make me feel like he was being followed. And so he would show me, oh, that helicopter right there, it's following me. And then I'm looking around at helicopters and my heart's racing and beating like, what did he do? And he's telling me, oh, I used to be, in prison before, and I'm out, and I, did these things, and they follow me ever since then. And so I started looking around, and every time we would get in a car or go somewhere, he would always point out someone or something was following him. And so I began to feel paranoid. And so I was a good girl for the most part. I mean, I didn't ever have any, run-ins with the law or anything like that. And so to have somebody try to make me feel paranoid around him being followed, I'm like, well, are they looking at me? Are they looking for me? And so that's kind of how it started, with this anxiety that I had. And so it started to get really bad and really crazy, because every time I would try and, disconnect from him or try to go somewhere by myself, he would always constantly call me. Where are you? What time are you coming back? And so I couldn't really be too far apart from him because he always wanted to be with me or go wherever I was going. And so, that coupled with me and feeling anxiety, it really started to drive me kind of insane very quickly. I mean, I had so much going on at the time. I was still a grieving widow. I was unemployed. I was looking for my next opportunity. I couldn't find a job. Here I'm stuck with this crazy guy. And I was mentally not all there and starting to slip, honestly. And I think that's probably how I fell so quickly and fell so into this type of relationship. Because honestly, I don't think, in my past that I would be attracted to a person who was so self-centered, so selfish, because a part of the selfishness was, not thinking of me first and really trying to make me feel like without him I could do anything. I couldn't do anything. Like that's rude. And after having lived so much life, I'm like, I can live without a man. But he started to make me think I couldn't live without him. And that if I try to break away, something bad was going to happen. And so now I'm walking around paranoid, looking for something around the corner. He would talk about, these gangs that he used to be a part of and how they were stalking and so forth. And so it really started to make me feel creeped out. But I was too far in to get out. And I was too kind of far gone mentally to really put a grasp on what he was really truly doing to me. I just knew that I was, in constant fear and anxiety every moment of the day that I was with this person. And I wasn't sleeping at night. And I felt like this anxiety was kind of bubbling up and causing me to have like mental distress. And so after I was with him for the summer and I was happy to get away, from him for the summer, but then he would immediately come to the city that I was living in and try to be close and get hotels and always want me to spend the night. And it was just like trying to keep me from my regular routine. And that was kind of how I think he started to get in, was to keep me occupied. And so, eventually, he convinced me to get an apartment with him. And so he moved to my city and here we go. Right. So now I'm living with this crazy person full time and he is starting to, act weird and even more crazy. And turns out he was on drugs. I mean, he was smoking crack and all this stuff that I had just like never been around it before. And I'm a woman of faith. But at the time, I wasn't really living the life that I was meant to live, that I knew I was supposed to be living for God. But I was praying like every single day. I was praying, and really deep in my heart, I was just like, this is not right. Something is wrong. I'm feeling this way. And I really just started to like read my word every day. And I was making bad decisions with this person. And he really started to make me feel like I was a bad person and that I was now being followed. And so I was living with his demons now. And so I really didn't understand what a soul tie was or what this transference type of thing was, because really it wasn't something that people talked about. But I believe he was like, all of his demonic activity and bad decisions, I felt like it was like oppressing me to the point to where I was starting to see things and hear things and experience things and just start to really feel like I was now living like his bad part of life. And I don't know how to describe it, man. I just know I was starting to go crazy. And one day I literally had it and I couldn't take it anymore. And I had to break away from this person. And so I decided pretty quickly that I needed to get away. I had a job interview in another state and I tried my best to get to this job interview because it was a perfect job for me. And, a job moved me across the country and I quickly got laid off. I ended up in this new state, taking care of living with my family. And, my kids were in school there and but the job that I had gotten an interview for was back in my home state. And so I was trying my best to get back there. But I couldn't get back there. Mentally, this guy had screwed my head so bad that I, didn't know my up from down, my left from right. I honestly had a nervous breakdown. And I felt like it was more of a spiritual breakdown than anything. It was the most traumatic experience I've ever had in my life, is to have someone literally drive you crazy, and all of their demons and all of the evil and wickedness that they had done was now chasing me. And it was the darkest period of my life. Man, even thinking about it, it's so hard. But the thing that happened is I finally moved out. I had to be rescued, to be honest with you. I was, had gone into kind of a mental breakdown. I ended up getting admitted for a hold. And if you've ever been in that situation, just from the sheer amount of stress, anxiety, pressure, now I'm going through, this paranoid, anxious. And so I'm in this place with all these other people, and I'm just like, God, this is not me. And I'm like praying, and I'm like, please get me out of here. And I'm walking around like, am I going to be here forever? Am I going to get my mind back? And I'm like praying to God and praying to God. And finally they let me out, and I went back home, and I immediately got on a bus. My daughter came and got me, and we booked out of there, right? We booked out of that state and took a bus ride all the way back to my home state, and I got away. And it didn't stop there. I mean, he called me constantly. He tried his best to get back, into talking graces. He told my family I was crazy. He told everybody that all the things that he was doing to me, he would actually make it seem like I was the one that was doing it, and turn my family, against me. And a narcissist has a way of doing that. I mean, financially, they'll try to strap you, isolate you from your family. He would make my family think that I was the one that was going crazy and irrational. And I had no body in my corner except for, my daughter. And I lost. Everyone looked at me like I was a failure. They talked about me in group chats. And I had to rebuild myself. And I still wasn't all there. I mean, this was one of the situations in which I can tell you that if you get into a situation where you're with a narcissist, pray and leave. Because if I had not left, I'm not so sure what he would have done to me, but it didn't stop there. He followed me back to my home where I was living, took a plane and tried to now come back into my life. And this time he came bearing a ring. So he tried to engage me to try and permanently cement my misery with him. And I was so angry, and I was disappointed. I mean, number one, it was not even a ring I would ever even want. So he the things that they will try to do to keep you are unconscionable, but to try to engage you so that you would be stuck to them forever in hell, that's literally how it felt. I was like, this is a demon. And if I marry this crazy person, I will be in hell. But obviously, by me leaving one state, traveling all the way across to the other side of the world, and this person following me, I wasn't done with the misery, because the mental, the mind games had such a hold over me that I didn't even know who I was. And I allowed this person back into my life after being pulled away, after having gotten committed. And this person, down talking me to my family, and he still had a hold over me. And so I went back. And it got even worse after that. So I'll stop the story here. I know I feel like I'm rambling because I'm halfway remembering, and this was, a very crazy period in time. I'll stop here and I'll pick back up with what happened after he moved in with me, back in my home state, and what happened after that because it gets even crazier. All right. So we'll talk to you later.